And Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My mother pretended to be poor for a whole year until she showed up with her boyfriend, 23 years her junior, and a check that hid the most twisted manipulation for my wedding. I have imagined my wedding for as long as I can remember. Not as a perfect fairy tale with princesses and carriages, but as a special gathering where all the important people in my life would come together to celebrate something truly meaningful. I always thought it would be a day full of joy and excitement, with laughter, hugs, and maybe a few tears of happiness. But here I am, just 1 week away from the big day, and instead of feeling excited and happy, I find myself submerged in a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and guilt. This is the last thing I expected to feel at this moment. Let me give you a little background to help you understand the situation. I am 28 years old, and my fiancé Nathan and I have been together for 3 years. He really is my special someone, my unconditional support, my cheerleader, simply the best partner I could wish for. We have been planning this wedding for over a year, and although we are not exactly rolling in money, we have saved enough to make this a day we can be proud of. Nothing extravagant, just a simple but elegant ceremony followed by an intimate reception with our closest friends and family. From the outset, we made it very clear that we didn't expect anyone to contribute financially. We didn't want to put that kind of pressure on anyone, and we were perfectly fine covering all the expenses ourselves. That said, there is a certain history with my mother that has been bubbling under the surface for years. Money has always been a sensitive subject with her. On the one hand, she constantly tells me how broke she is. On the other hand, her spending habits tell a completely different story. Designer handbags, of course. Dinners at fancy restaurants where the entrees cost as much as my weekly food shop? You bet. Weekend getaways that she posts on Instagram with phrases like, treat yourself. Without a doubt, during my childhood, this pattern was frustrating, to say the least. When I asked her about it, she would either shut down completely or deflect the responsibility onto someone else, making it seem like none of it was her fault. As a child, it was confusing, but I learned to live with it. Now, as an adult, I have made a conscious effort to keep my expectations low when it comes to her and money. It's been my way of avoiding that familiar feeling of disappointment. When Nathan and I got engaged, my mother's reaction wasn't exactly what I expected. Instead of showing great enthusiasm for me, her first response was to apologize, saying how sorry she was that she couldn't help out financially with the wedding. I immediately assured her that it was fine and that I really meant it. The last thing I wanted was for her to feel guilty or pressured. For me, her presence and emotional support were much more important than any financial contribution. However, as the months went by, she kept bringing up the subject. Every time the wedding came up in conversation, she somehow found a way to mention her financial difficulties. It wasn't like she was offering a direct apology. It felt more like a subtle reminder that I shouldn't expect anything from her. Honestly, it stung a little, but I told myself I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't want money, or the lack of it, to create a rift between us. And then, about 2 months ago, everything suddenly changed. My mom started dating a man named Kyle. She's 53, he's 30. Let's just say this wasn't what I was expecting. My mom had always dated men closer to her own age, so this represented a big departure from her usual pattern. I admit it threw me. What's more, Kyle is only a couple of years older than me, which made the whole situation feel strange. Very strange. It's hard to explain, but the dynamic just didn't seem to fit from the start. I kept telling myself, well, if he makes her happy, that's what matters. But the truth is that Kyle's personality hasn't made it easy for me to get close to him. He's loud, stubborn, and has this habit of taking over conversations. Everything ends up revolving around him. You know the type. He takes the most casual comment and turns it into an opportunity to share some long and tedious story about his life or his opinions. It's exhausting. Despite all this, my mother seemed completely smitten. She was radiating happiness in a way I hadn't seen in a long time, so I bit my tongue and kept my thoughts to myself. After all, it's her life, not mine. But even though I kept telling myself not to judge, I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. Kyle wasn't just someone new in her life. He was starting to take up a lot of space in mine, too. And with the wedding approaching, things were about to get even more complicated. Last week, my mother showed up at my apartment completely unannounced, which was already somewhat unexpected, But she didn't come alone. She brought Kyle to formally introduce him to us. From the moment he walked in, he dominated the room, launching into a long, self-congratulatory monologue about his life achievements. I can't even remember half of what he said because my mind just shut down after the first 5 minutes. I just nodded and tried to be as polite as possible, although I felt extremely uncomfortable the whole time. Then, out of nowhere, my mother took out an envelope and handed it to me. Inside was a check for $5,000 for the wedding. I was stunned. This is the same woman who had spent the last year reminding me over and over again how broke she was and how she couldn't help out financially. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat there staring at the check, trying to process what was happening. Before I could even say thank you or ask where the sudden generosity had come from, she dropped the real bombshell. She wanted Kyle to walk me down the aisle. I honestly thought I had misheard her at first. I mean, what? Walk me down the aisle? Kyle, a man I had met 15 minutes earlier who, let's face it, was more interested in talking about himself than really getting to know me. His reasoning: he said Kyle had become such an important part of his life, and he wanted him to feel included in the family. I was completely taken aback. I have spent years coming to terms with the fact that my father would not be there to walk me down the aisle. It has been an emotional journey, but I have finally reached a place of peace about it. My Uncle Robert, who has been like a second father to me since my father passed away, had already agreed to take on that role. For her to suggest replacing him with Kyle, someone who is basically a stranger to me, felt so absurd and honestly like a stab in the back. I tried to stay calm. I told him, as politely as I could, that although I really appreciated his incredibly generous offer to contribute financially, I couldn't accept his request. For years, I had imagined my uncle, and that's when things took a sharp turn. He quickly became defensive. Suddenly, I was ungrateful and disrespectful. He accused me of rejecting his happiness and not being open to welcoming Kyle into my life. Then he dealt me the lowest blow imaginable. He brought my father into it, saying that he would have wanted me to move on and let someone else take on that role. It felt so manipulative and hurtful, as if he were using my father's memory against me. I stood my ground and told her that this wasn't about rejecting her happiness or Kyle, but about honoring the plans I had already made and the people who have been there for me through thick and thin. She wouldn't listen. She grabbed the check from my hand, stormed out with Kyle right behind her, and left me standing there, completely devastated. Since then, she has been ignoring all my calls and messages. The only time she responded was to send me a short, sharp message saying that the ball was in my court and that I needed to sort things out. It's like she's putting this whole mess on me, and I have no idea how to even begin to untangle it. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on the last-minute wedding preparations, but the weight of her ultimatum has been difficult to ignore. My Uncle Robert called me after she contacted him to explain her side of the story, and now he feels uncomfortable about walking me down the aisle. Meanwhile, Kyle has been posting cryptic updates on social media that seem aimed at me, insinuating that I am selfish and ungrateful. It's all becoming too much. Am I being unreasonable by standing my ground? Should I just give in to keep the peace? Or is this another example of his manipulative tendencies? And do I need to set firm boundaries? I feel like no matter what I choose, someone will end up getting hurt. I would really appreciate some outside perspective at this point. Update 1. It's been a couple of days since I shared everything that happened, and, honestly, the support I have received has been simply amazing. Reading the comments has been revealing in many ways. It's like holding a mirror up to parts of my life that I hadn't really wanted to examine too closely. Many pointed out that my mother's behavior seems manipulative, and while I've always known she could be difficult, I didn't realize how much I've normalized her actions over the years. It's hard to admit, but they're absolutely right. After taking some time to reflect on everything, I decided to try contacting her one more time. I wasn't feeling particularly optimistic, but I needed to try for my own peace of mind, if nothing else. As she still wasn't answering my calls, I thought an email might be the best option. Writing it gave me the opportunity to organize my thoughts and explain how I felt without the risk of things turning into another heated argument. In the email, I tried to be as calm and clear as possible. I told him how deeply hurt and confused I was by everything that had happened. I explained why having Uncle Robert walk me down the aisle was so important to me, not only because he is family, but because he has been a constant and loving father figure since my father passed away. I also pointed out how upsetting it was that she used the $5,000 as a kind of bargaining tool and then threatened not to come to the wedding. And finally, I told her that although I understand that she is excited about Kyle and I want her to feel included, it is unfair and frankly inappropriate to push him into such a significant role on a day that is supposed to be about Nathan and me. To my surprise, she replied within hours. Her email was, well, let's just say it was a mixed bag. She started by apologizing for coming on too strong, which gave me a brief glimmer of hope. But then the tone changed, and things went downhill from there. She accused me of being closed-minded about Kyle and claimed I wasn't giving him a fair chance to be part of the family. And then she dropped another bombshell. She and Kyle are planning to move in together next month. Yes, after only 2 months of dating, she wrote about it as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if that alone should justify why she deserves to play such an important role in my wedding. To top it all off, she casually mentioned that the $5,000 she had offered wasn't all hers. It was partially Kyle's. That little detail made me feel even more uncomfortable about the whole situation. After reading her email, Nathan and I sat down to talk about everything. I need time to process it before deciding how to respond, or even if I should respond. At this point, my mental health must come first, and I can't keep getting dragged into this drama. Throughout all of this, Uncle Robert has been absolutely my rock. When I told him about my mother's latest email, he reassured me without hesitation that he is still completely on board to walk me down the aisle. He made it clear that he doesn't want me to worry about any of this nonsense and just wants me to focus on enjoying my big day. His support has been a blessing. It's exactly what I needed to hear right now. Meanwhile, I've realized how much this situation is affecting other parts of my life. For example, when I sat down to work on the seating plan, I realized how many people would I have to explain things to if my mother really doesn't show up. There will be many uncomfortable conversations about her absence. People will ask, and I'll have to decide whether to give the real story, keep it vague, or just change the subject. None of those options sound great. I mean, how do you casually explain that your mother skipped your wedding because you wouldn't let her boyfriend of 2 months walk you down the aisle? And as if things weren't complicated enough, my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, called me yesterday. Apparently, my mother had shared parts of a story with her, and Linda wanted to know what was really going on. I could tell she was trying to remain neutral, but the more I explained the situation, the more I could hear the frustration in her voice. Linda has always been the mediator in our family, the one who tries to keep the peace and smooth over conflicts, so I wasn't surprised when she offered to talk to my mother. I really appreciated her stepping in, but to be honest, I don't have much hope. My mother has this way of digging in her heels when she feels she's been wronged. And I don't know if anyone, even Linda, can make her see reason at this point. Still, it's comforting to know that I have people on my side willing to try. Regardless of how all this turns out, I am determined not to let it ruin what is supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. At the end of the day, this wedding is about Nathan and me, about the love we share and the life we are building together. I keep reminding myself of that every time I feel the weight of the drama hanging over me. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who has reached out with advice, encouragement, and kind words. Seriously, it has been such a comfort to know that I am not alone in this. Your support has helped me find the strength to stay strong and focus on what really matters. I will keep you posted on what happens next. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for a positive resolution, but either way, I'm ready to walk down the aisle with the people who really support me. Update 2. Things have taken an unexpected and frankly worrying turn. Yesterday, my mother's best friend, Joan, got in touch with me. I've always had a soft spot for Joan. She's kind, down to earth, and one of those people who always seems to have her head screwed on. She's also known my mother for over 20 years, so if anyone can sense when something's wrong, it's her. Apparently, Joan has been increasingly concerned about my mother's relationship with Kyle, and what she shared with me was both shocking and heartbreaking. According to her, Kyle actually moved in with my mother almost a month ago, not next month, as my mother had stated in her email. That little detail alone took me by surprise, but then it got worse. Joan told me that Kyle is between jobs, which realistically sounds like a polite way of saying he's unemployed. She said she ran into my mom at an ATM last week and noticed she was making unusually large cash withdrawals. When she casually asked about it, my mom immediately became defensive and evasive, which set off all kinds of alarm bells for Joan. She's worried that Kyle might be taking financial advantage of my mother, and honestly, I can't say the thought hasn't crossed my mind too. The whole situation is moving so fast, too fast. They've only known each other for a couple of months, and he's already living in her house, and apparently has access to her money. It's a lot to take in. And now, looking back at that $5,000 wedding check, I can't help but feel uncomfortable again. Was it even my mother's money to give? If Kyle contributed as my mother claimed, what were his motives? Did he pressure her to offer the money as some kind of power play? Maybe to gain leverage over me, or even buy his way into the family. The more I think about it, the more uncomfortable I feel. This is no longer just about the wedding. It's about the bigger picture of what's happening in my mother's life. Joan also mentioned that my mother's behavior has been increasingly erratic lately. She's making impulsive decisions, distancing herself from her lifelong friends, and seems completely consumed by her relationship with Kyle. It's as if she lives in this bubble, so caught up in the whirlwind that she can't or doesn't want to see what's really going on. I decided to try contacting my mother again, but this time I took a completely different approach. Instead of bringing up the wedding or going over past arguments, I focused on her well-being. I told her that I had heard that she had been withdrawing large amounts of money and asked her if everything was okay. I tried to make it clear that I was not judging or accusing her of anything. I just wanted to check because I was genuinely concerned. I emphasized that this came from a place of love, not criticism, and that I just wanted to make sure she was safe and happy. Her response was harsh, to say the least. She immediately became defensive and accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness. She said that everyone around her is jealous of her relationship with Kyle and went on a tirade about how no one understands what they have together. And then, to top it all off, she made a comment that hit me like a punch in the stomach. She said that I am just like my father, overprotective and controlling. Hearing that was like a slap in the face. My father was an incredible man, loving, stable, and always looking out for our family. If standing up for what is right or being concerned about his choices makes me sound like him, then honestly, I will take it as a compliment. But I know she didn't mean it like that. She meant it to hurt. And it did. What makes this all the more difficult is that she is now spreading her version of events to other members of the family. She has been telling people that I am trying to control her life and that I don't want her to be happy. My cousin Jen called me last night, confused and concerned, asking what was going on because my mother had been venting to her about how I am supposedly pushing her away and trying to dictate their relationship. It's exhausting having to explain myself over and over again, but I'm doing my best to stay calm and stick to the facts. Fortunately, most of my family seem to see through the narrative she's creating. People like Jen, my Uncle Robert, and even my Aunt Linda have all been incredibly supportive. They know me and know that I have never tried to hurt my mother or control her choices. Even so, it is very stressful to feel like I have to keep defending myself while also trying to manage everything else in the run-up to the wedding. As much as I want to believe that this will eventually pass, I am starting to accept the possibility that it won't. My mother seems deeply entrenched in her choices right now, and Kyle's influence on her feels undeniable. The possibility of my mother missing my wedding, one of the most important days of my life, is devastating. But at the same time, I am trying to shift my focus to the people who will be there. People who genuinely love and support Nathan and me. I still hold out a little hope that my mother will have a change of heart. Maybe one day she will wake up and realize what she is doing. Or maybe someone like Jen or Linda will finally get through to her. But I also know that I can't pin all my hopes on that possibility. I have to prepare myself for the reality that she might not be there. Through all of this, one thing I have held on to is the knowledge that I have done everything I can to reach out and make things right. I have tried to meet her halfway, to stay calm and to focus on the love I have for her. If she still chooses not to show up, then that is up to her, not me. At the end of the day, this wedding is about Nathan and me. It's about the love we share and the life we are building together. That's where my energy needs to be. I refuse to let the situation rob the joy of what is supposed to be a beautiful and happy milestone in our lives. I will keep you all posted after the wedding to let you know how everything goes. In the meantime, Thank you so much for all the support, advice, and kind words you have shared with me throughout this process. I really can't thank you enough. Update 3. The wedding was yesterday, and honestly, I'm still trying to sort through all the emotions swirling around in my head. It was a truly beautiful day, one I will never forget, but it wasn't without its challenges. Some moments were magical and filled with so much love, while others were, well, complicated. To my surprise, my mother showed up, but in typical fashion, it was at the last possible moment, about 15 minutes before the ceremony was due to start. She came alone, which honestly was a relief because Kyle wasn't with her. I couldn't help but feel a wave of mixed emotions when I saw her. On the one hand, I was glad she came, but on the other, her energy was noticeably off. She didn't really talk to me, she didn't ask how I was feeling, and she kept her distance. She looked good on the outside, well-groomed and calm, but there was something beneath the surface that felt disconnected. It was as if she were physically there, but not really emotionally present. The ceremony itself, however, was everything I could have hoped for and more. Having Uncle Robert walk me down the aisle was such a powerful and emotional moment. Over the years, I have thought so much about my father and how much I have missed having him here. As Uncle Robert and I walked together, I felt this overwhelming wave of gratitude towards him for always being there when I needed someone to fill that void. I looked at him and could tell he was holding back tears, which almost made me lose it too. It was just such a tender moment, one that reminded me of how much love and support I really have in my life. The ceremony was beautiful and everything went smoothly. The sun was shining, the flowers looked perfect, and everyone seemed so happy to be there. Nathan and I couldn't have asked for a more perfect setting to start our life together. The reception was equally lovely, the dinner was delicious, the speeches were heartfelt, and the dance floor was full of everyone having a good time. It was exactly what Nathan and I had imagined, a day full of love, laughter, and celebration. But then there was my mother. Her behavior at the reception felt strange. She sat with a group of relatives and mostly kept to herself. She didn't really engage with anyone beyond small polite talk, and she made no effort to talk to me or Nathan, honestly. Part of me was relieved because I didn't want any drama, but another part of me felt hurt. It was as if she intentionally kept her distance, which only highlighted how strange things have become between us. And then, without any fanfare or even a goodbye, she slipped away. I only realized she was gone when I asked someone if they had seen her, and they said she had left shortly after dinner. That hurt more than I thought it would. I didn't expect her to stay the whole night, but to leave in silence without telling me anything, it felt like another subtle way of reminding me where we are right now. This morning I woke up to a long text message from my mom, and it completely broke me. In it, she confessed that Kyle had left her 3 days ago. Not only did he leave, but he also took a significant amount of her money. She said she hadn't wanted to tell anyone at first because she felt ashamed, which broke my heart even more. In her message, she apologized for how she had acted in the run-up to the wedding. She admitted that she had been struggling with depression, especially with the anniversary of my father's death approaching. She said she hadn't been in a good place emotionally, and that made her more vulnerable than she realized. Reading those words made me feel a mixture of sadness and frustration. On the one hand, it was the first time she had really acknowledged that her actions had hurt me. On the other, it made me wonder why it took her hitting rock bottom to see what was happening. She also admitted something I had suspected for a while. Kyle had been taking advantage of her from the start. She said that Joan has been helping her figure out what to do next, and they are planning to file a police report about the money he took. Still, my mom sounded doubtful that she would ever see any of that money again, and that part of the text was especially hard to read because it's clear that she feels so defeated right now. But then there was something in her message that gave me a small glimmer of hope. She said she's finally going to start therapy. After everything that's happened, that honestly feels like the first truly positive step she's taken in a long time. Knowing that she's at least considering getting professional help feels like progress, even if it's just a small step in the right direction. Although I am relieved to see her beginning to accept everything, it doesn't erase how much her actions hurt me during what should have been one of the happiest moments of my life. Her words felt sincere, but the pain she caused doesn't go away overnight. It's going to take time for me to process everything and figure out how to move forward with her. Nathan, as always, has been my rock. He has been so supportive, encouraging me to take my time and not to rush into any decisions about my mother. He even suggested family therapy later on, which I think might be a good idea. For now, however, I'm focusing on letting myself feel everything, both the pain and the hope. Right now, we're on a little honeymoon in a cozy cabin by the lake. And it's been exactly what I needed. We spend our days taking long walks, cooking together, and just enjoying the tranquility. It's been so relaxing to disconnect from everything and focus on the present. Every time I look at Nathan, I feel so grateful to have him by my side. Looking ahead, I'm trying to stay hopeful. My mom's message felt like a step in the right direction, even if it's not enough to fix everything yet. I'm still hurt. It's going to take time to rebuild that trust, but I also know that people make mistakes, especially when they're struggling. I'm trying to keep that in mind as I navigate where we go from here. For now, my focus is on this new chapter with Nathan. Being newlyweds is such a special and exciting time, and I want to fully enjoy it without letting drama overshadow our happiness. I know the road ahead with my mom could be rocky, but I choose to believe that better days are coming for both of us. Thank you to everyone who has followed my story and shared their advice, support, and kind words. It has meant more to me than you could ever know. Here's to a future full of love, healing, and brighter moments ahead.